That pinch of salt you just sprinkled without thinking? Your ancestors would have crossed deserts and risked their lives for it. The whole action takes less than 2 seconds. But for most of human history, salt was one of the hardest things on Earth to find. Not inconvenient, not expensive, genuinely, physically difficult to find. Your ancestors spent hundreds of thousands of years searching for it, craving it, sometimes dying without it. That craving you feel for salty food right now? That's not preference. That's a biological instruction older than upright walking. So when did we actually figure out how to answer it? For over 300,000 years, Homo sapiens lived without any real way to collect, store, or trade salt. No mines, no evaporation ponds, no jars to keep it dry, just a body screaming for sodium, and a landscape that hid it in unpredictable places. A salt lick here, a mineral spring there, or the blood of a freshly killed animal, still warm on the ground. That was often it. Your body needs sodium to survive. Not wants, needs. Your heart uses it to fire. Your neurons use it to signal. Without sodium, blood pressure drops, muscles stop contracting properly, and a person can die within days. So your body built an alarm system, a craving sharp enough to feel even now if you go without salt too long. Ancient humans felt that alarm constantly, with no reliable way to answer it. The first real clue about how they solved this doesn't come from a lab. It comes from watching animals. Elephants in Kenya travel 40 kilometers to chip salt-laced rock from mineral caves and eat it. Deer lick road salt in winter. Gorillas eat sodium-rich plants and riverbank soil specifically for minerals. These animals aren't doing this by accident. They're responding to the exact same biological signal your body sends you. Your ancestors watched closely. They followed herds and tracked migration patterns to find the same spots. The mineral springs, the salt licks, the sodium-rich river clay, those became places humans returned to as well. For hundreds of thousands of years, the strategy was simple. Go where the animals go. Let the landscape guide you. But that strategy had a brutal flaw. Salt sources aren't evenly spread across the world. The East African Rift Valley, where much of early human evolution happened, was actually relatively sodium poor. Researchers believe sodium scarcity created a constant low-grade stress for early humans. Never a crisis, but a persistent pressure. That pressure shaped behavior in ways still visible today, especially around sharing. Research on early cooperative groups found that rare, high-value resources like salt were shared more broadly than common ones. If one person found a salt deposit, it didn't stay private. It spread, because the whole group's survival depended on it. That's how early salt sharing worked. Not trade, not ownership, but the same cooperation that kept our species alive. Picture a group of about 25 people moving through what is now Ethiopia, roughly 100,000 years ago. They're following a dry riverbed north, because the rains have failed and the game has moved on. One woman, who has walked this route before, leads them toward a bend where the clay smells different, where the earth carries a faint whitish crust after it dries. She's seen this crust twice before in her life. They stop. They scrape the earth with flat stones in their fingers, eating the clay directly from the ground. The children eat it too. The taste is sharp and bitter, nothing like refined salt, but their bodies respond immediately. That mineral signal registers somewhere below conscious thought, older than language itself. It feels like relief. They stay 2 days, then move on, because the deposit is small and already running out. That was the rhythm of salt for most of human history. Find it, use it, move on. The Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last surviving hunter-gatherer groups, still get most of their sodium from meat and organs. A hunter eats the liver almost immediately after a kill. The sodium inside does real, immediate physiological work. Their diet naturally stays sodium adequate without ever using a shaker or added salt at all. A similar pattern was found among the Jew Huansi of the Kalahari, studied for decades by anthropologist Richard Lee. Their natural diet provided roughly 690 milligrams of sodium a day, almost exactly what cardiologists now consider ideal. Your ancestors were hitting the perfect target without even trying, because the food itself was already right. Then agriculture arrived, and everything changed. But first, something else happened. Humans learned to actually make salt. In 2011, archaeologists uncovered a site in northeastern Romania called Lunca, pushing back the known timeline of salt making. Dating to roughly 8,000 years ago, the site contained ceramic vessels and fire pits used to boil brine. This wasn't accidental contact with a mineral deposit. This was a deliberate, repeated production system. And this wasn't a full civilization either, just Neolithic villagers already running an organized salt operation. Hundreds of broken ceramic fragments were found at the site, cracked repeatedly from hours of intense heat. People kept making new pots. This wasn't occasional use. It happened continuously, season after season. And the salt didn't stay local. Chemical traces from Lunca were found in artifacts up to 100 kilometers away. Salt was already a traded commodity before bronze, before writing, before any empire ever existed. Lunca wasn't alone either. China's Yuncheng Salt Lake shows organized salt harvesting from roughly the same era. Along the Peruvian coast, ancient communities built shallow clay basins to evaporate seawater for salt as well. 3 separate continents, 3 unconnected cultures, all arriving at the same solution within roughly the same window. When a behavior appears independently across separate populations at the same time, something in the environment had clearly changed. And something had. Farming had just begun, and grain changed everything about sodium. When humans settled and began eating mainly wheat, barley, and rice, their natural sodium intake collapsed. Domesticated grain carries almost no sodium at all. A diet built around it left the body chronically undersupplied. Skeletal studies confirm this pattern. Early farmers were shorter, less healthy, and showed signs of nutritional deficiency. Farming made people more numerous, but at first, genuinely worse off nutritionally. Salt didn't become precious because humans suddenly loved the taste. It became precious because farming made deficiency the default. And once deficiency became normal, controlling salt effectively meant controlling survival itself. Picture a cold morning at Lunca, 8,000 years ago, the air carrying a faint mineral, sulfurous smell. People carry heavy ceramic pots to the spring's edge, filling them carefully with brine. They build fires and tend them for hours, watching carefully as the pots crack under repeated heat stress. When the water finally evaporates, a crust of white crystals is left behind, carefully scraped and collected. Some of it stays with the group. Some is wrapped and carried elsewhere. The beginning of every salt trade route in history. Humans traded nutrient-dense wild organs for fields of grain, then accidentally created a sodium crisis of their own making, and spent the next 8,000 years trying to replace what farming had quietly taken away. Every Roman soldier was partly paid in salt, which is exactly where the word salary comes from. Ancient Egyptians preserved their dead using natron, a sodium compound tied deeply to purity and preservation itself. The Great Salt Roads crossing the Sahara connected sub-Saharan Africa to the Mediterranean world entirely around this need. At its peak, the Timbuktu salt trade moved massive slabs of Saharan rock salt across 1,000 kilometers of desert, sometimes trading it weight for weight with gold, because salt could keep you alive, and gold simply couldn't. Empires were partly built to control it. Borders were drawn around it. Governments taxed it heavily. In 18th century France, a brutal salt tax became one of the most hated symbols of royal power. That resentment helped fuel the anger that eventually fed directly into revolution. Gandhi's famous 1930 Salt March in India wasn't really about seasoning. It was about survival and colonial control. A protest about a colonial power taxing a substance a billion human bodies genuinely required to function. Salt was never just a condiment. It was a controlled substance, understood as essential long before nutritional science existed. And then, something strange happened. Salt got cheap. Industrial evaporation and mechanized mining changed everything. In roughly 150 years, salt went from a precious commodity to one of the cheapest substances on Earth. Today, a kilogram of table salt costs less than a cup of coffee, hidden invisibly inside nearly every processed food. The scarcity ended completely. But the ancient craving inside your body never got the memo. Your nervous system is still calibrated for a hunter-gatherer's sodium intake, roughly 700 milligrams a day. The average modern person now consumes nearly 5 times that amount, almost entirely from pre-salted food. And yet the craving never fully switches off, because your brain still believes sodium is rare and precious. Research shows sodium deficiency activates the same reward pathways in the brain as addictive substances, flooding your brain with dopamine the moment sodium is finally consumed. Real relief, not just craving satisfied. Your brain is rewarding you for finding something it still believes is genuinely rare. It hasn't been told that scarcity ended. You're running ancient software inside a completely modern environment. The software is doing exactly what it was always built to do, chase sodium, then signal relief when it's found. Never fully switching off, because for 300,000 years, switching off would have killed you. Somewhere in Romania, 8,000 years ago, someone crouched over a cracked clay pot, scraping crystals free with their fingernails. Solving the exact same problem your body still tries to solve every time you reach for the shaker today. They just had to work far harder for the same answer you now get in under 2 seconds. The salt on your table is the finish line of a 300,000-year search. Your ancestors tasted it in blood and clay, followed elephants to find it, boiled brine for hours, and paid for it with gold. They built empires to control it, and revolutions to take it back. And now it sits there 2 feet away, completely unremarkable. The craving still alive, but the search finally over.